This is The Foundation, stories from people who build things, products, services, businesses, how they started, what they're doing now, and where they're going.
Good morning, Paul Corey of Westcoat here on the West Coast. I love that name. We're both here in San Diego, and I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me today. You told me a little bit about the genealogy of a number of companies that you started. Let's go back into the time machine and start with that. What was the foundation of Life Deck, which became Westcoat?
Well, I guess it goes back even a little further. My partner, Don, and I um, started Pacific Pebbles in 1981. We had worked in another company doing epoxy flooring, and he and I decided to break away and start our own company, which was primarily residential, a little bit of commercial work here in San Diego. And by the late 80s, as we started getting into more waterproofing, we evolved the name to be first Life Deck by Pacific Pebbles, and then we dropped the Pebbles as we kind of phased away from that sort of product line, but it was the same company. It was still Pacific Pebbles Corporation.
How does someone have the epiphany to say that I want to crush some pebbles and put them in epoxy and then go to the next step, which is making Life Deck? Is this something that you knew as a kid?
Well, interesting. No, it didn't have anything to do with any of my training. I mean, I actually was in school and decided to leave and go after I graduated, and I went to get. I've been working with my dad, working on heavy equipment as a mechanic. But when I started doing that, he ended up getting hurt, and I went and helped my brother do some concrete work. We got to travel doing this epoxy work. So I did this. It was someone else's idea. I was just an installer. And when I started our company, we used that same concept, sourced our own rocks from around the country, these pebbles, and sourced our own epoxying. Then we started evolving the system to where we started putting it on balcony decks. And so we needed waterproofing membranes below the pebbles that we helped combine and then evolve that system into its own kind of system for a balcony deck, a roof deck versus on grade concrete. So it was kind of because of a need or a demand. We needed something to help waterproof. So we first started using urethane products and then evolved into using a lath and cement product that was provided by somebody up in LA. And that became one of the main parts of our business. We subsequently dropped the pebbles and put other decorative finishes. So it was really an evolution. And then because we didn't always have a good source for materials, we started finding our own sources and developing our own product brand.
So this Pacific Pebble, this was early 80s or late 70s. Is that the approximate time?
Yeah, 81 we started. I had been doing the epoxy flooring for a couple of years prior to that with another company.
It seems about that timeline that there were companies and installers who decided to use pebbles and epoxy together for a nicer floor than just a concrete floor. Is that about the time frame that it became a popular thing to do?
Oh yeah, I think we were pretty much the leader here in town as we were looking to grow. It grew from patios and pool decks to kind of all around the property. What we did find though, it was tough to do the maintenance and upkeep, and so it sort of um, it required so much maintenance, and maybe the times had changed, and folks were looking for different kinds of finishes. So we evolved that into other kinds of decorative concrete toppings.
So it became a challenge because of the topography of the material. I mean, epoxy would have sort of flattened it a little bit, or were a lot of these pebbles dislodging, and it just became problematic from that standpoint.
Yes, it did become problematic. If you were to trowel epoxy outside, the resin will yellow, and something we knew about, and it would fade away. What we would do is encourage customers to reseal it.
So after a while of people not keeping up maintenance-wise, it just became too much of an effort to try and maintain and repair. That then led to Life Deck.
At first, we were installing our product, and then we started outsourcing the product. Then we had some other people make a resin for us for our pebble epoxy. Um, Later on, we were looking for sources for waterproof decking material and ended up developing our own system for waterproof decking that was not pebble related, and that turned into the what we branded as Life Deck at the time, and we called the company Life Deck, and that we started installing with that brand around late '88, early '89 into the early '90s, and then started working with different people to help us distribute the product and partnering up with other people up in LA to get the product in some stores. And I was a little bit less reliant on the contracting business ultimately, and more reliant or spending my energy on promoting a product that was put into stores.
Into the big box stores, so it would be a DIY scenario, or were you going after contractors?
Good question. Yeah, only contractors, and specifically waterproofing contractors. So we were looking for a special contractor. So here in town, there was only a couple of supply houses that would sell waterproofing materials. But my focus was up in LA initially, in Northern California. I didn't want to sell right into the area where I was contracting, and I didn't want to compete with these customers right away. So I developed a market in the rest of Southern California, outside of San Diego, um, getting it into some lumber yards and some waterproofing supply houses. And we grew that brand over the '90s and the 2000s.
Or do you have any of the product in some of the traditional building yards?
Good question. So Thompson did sell our products. Now let me fast forward a bit.
Sure.
We shared that brand with others over a period of time, and then in 2007 rebranded the product line as Westcoat. So the Westcoat was born almost 20 years ago now, and that's where that line was developed, and essentially took some of the same technology that was developed early on and evolved it with a new brand. I kind of called it, we had a lot of good technology, but I called the rebranding kind of getting our grill done. We decided in about 2005, 6 that our brand looked kind of drab, and I made a decision to move to the Westcoat brand name. And then the launch of that was in essentially 2007 for the Westcoat brand. Most of our product would be on balcony decks and walking surfaces. The largest market is waterproofing on these apartments and condos or a custom home. And I actually have a sample I can show you. A multi-layered system that starts with the metal lath, base coat, slurry coat. We're actually evolving this metal lath with a new glass lath. That'll be the upgrade. The point here is to build a fire-rated waterproof deck system for balconies.
Let's go back a little bit to Life Deck. When we were speaking earlier, you talked about how you transferred that through an ESOP program, an employee stock option program, I think you said in 1981. I'd love to hear about the decision to do that and the magnanimous gesture you made.
Well, thank you. So we started in '81, and in 2000, we're 26 now. In 2022, um, I sold the company to the employees. I mean, it did take a few years of getting things organized. So um, finally, we just kind of named the leadership team there, and I was able to step back and do the transaction, pay off over several years. And, they still buy Westcoat products, and they're like a partner, if you will. But, we're detached now. I used to own the company. Now I don't.
You said earlier in the conversation that you were trying to not compete with out of market contractors who would be a little suspicious of you as a contractor doing a lot of the work. And now that you're decoupled from that, it's probably not as much of a challenge to sell product from Westcoat to Life Deck and other contractors in the Southland.
Well, that's a good point, David. I know that in about the year 95 and 2000, there were plenty of competitor contractors here that weren't going to buy our product simply because it was our product as a contractor. And we did get over that, and to the point of the it being an inhibitor. It was an inhibitor at times, but as we generated enough business with architects specifying the product, and enough marketing referrals and the demand for the product got to be so great, they wanted to install it. And I didn't sell them at like a higher price. And the LifeDeck guys do such great work. How can you, as a competitor, complain about someone who does great work and isn't undercutting the market by any means?
That's a good point. You mentioned earlier architects as specifiers. So tell me who the specifier is for Westcoat.
Westcoat has a sales, technical sales senior rep here, Mark DeZino. He's the one that works with the architects here in town, and he's been doing that for over 20 years, 25 years with us. So at one level, the contractors who buy the products here in town, they will submit this and to the architect, and they'll, bring it in as an option.
Well, it's interesting because architects always want something new. What are these
Yeah.
architects pushing Mark and you to do?
It can vary. There are anywhere from the apartments where we need to be competitive on, and they want something fairly inexpensive. They do need to be fire rated products. That's probably the biggest requirement. I think safe, non-skid, or skid resistant, and yeah, sometimes decorative. I think the decorative aspect varies. We evolved that epoxy pebble into other kinds of flooring. I'll give you an example here. This is called our tidal stone, and it looks a little bit like ground concrete, a little bit like terrazzo, and it's probably a less than an eighth of an inch thick. There's actually a masonite underneath here. So on the flooring, I mean, similar to what I just showed with the tile stone, this is more of a traditional flooring where it wraps up the cove. So if you're a restaurant, you want something easy to clean. You've seen these restaurants, you go in the back and they have tile and there's grout lines and it's kind of nasty. Um, this kind of a surface is seamless and much easier to clean. It meets the health department's requirements, being impervious and scrubbable. And sometimes they require a certain thickness. This kind of flooring's been done in restaurants. So that's just, again, like an example of, seamless, chemical resistant flooring.
So if I were to come into your manufacturing facility, I presume that it's where you mentioned it, sort of East San Diego. I would see heavy machinery. If I opened up the secret curtain, I'd see a cauldron of bubbling material that is being mixed up. Or walk us a little bit through that.
I wish I could walk you back there on now, but there is it's like a 500 to 600 gallon batches of whether it be epoxy or acrylic material or polyurethane. For the most part, non-flammable, type manufacturing. We do have to be, VOC compliant and, work within the confines of the fire and the state and the city and the EPA and what have you. But to manufacture here, we've got it all set up to where we buy raw materials. Some are compounded and blended in different ways. We have a laboratory which they pull out a small batch and do a test before it gets shipped, and then we retain a small amount. So yeah, there's a full-on manufacturing facility here, and you should come by and see. Maybe we do a part 2 of this.
I would love to come and see that. That is a good invitation. I appreciate that, Paul. So, as promised at the beginning, let's sort of wrap this up, if you don't mind. And I like to end with this question. What should I have asked you as we finish this conversation?
Oh, that's interesting. I guess the question would be, do you enjoy what you're doing, or when are you going to retire? And I love what I'm doing. I love getting up in the morning, coming to work. We have a great staff here. We've built a fantastic culture. I don't really need to be here that much. I come and I think I provide a little bit of support, but it's less and less all the time. So I love what I'm doing. I do plan to hand off more and more of the reins over the next couple of years. And, my wife and I are enjoying a little more travel, a lot more grandkids, nice little segue in life here, and a few more bike rides. So, yeah, I could work a little bit less and take a little more time off. And that's going to happen over the next couple of years.
So I'm going to end with this because it's an indication that you still find complete joy. I saw an Instagram post recently from you, and I'm going to paraphrase it. It says, "I can't imagine more fun than being at your first concrete pour of a new project. So I think that says a lot right there. Thank you for your time, Paul. We shall see you down the road sometime.
All right. Well, appreciate it, David. Thanks for inviting me.
The Foundation is produced by Studio Conover and edited by Brett Euler. Studio Conover is a strategic marketing design firm for manufacturers of building products. Visit studioconover.com for more information.